So, Mom, when all this was happening over the last few months, kind of how did it make you feel? Or what did you think was going on?
Well, I thought that maybe I'd had a stroke because I lost words a lot and I couldn't find the words I wanted. And also, like directions, right and left, and places that I knew. I couldn't remember where things were. And I thought I'd had a stroke.
So then you went to the hospital.
Yes, friends took me to the hospital. And the hospital weren't at all impressed with me and pretty much thought that I ought to get up and get going, I think.
And that was when you were in Henley.
That was Henley.
Yeah.
And they really weren't very nice because a doctor would come and talk away and sounded as if maybe this doctor was showing an interest and going to help me in some way or another. But then they went away and didn't come back again, and another doctor came. So this happened several times, but didn't actually do anything that was any help.
And what did your local GP say at that time? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay. Just that you were anxious and stressed, right? Didn't...
Yeah, I think maybe the local GP thought there wasn't much wrong at all.
Yeah. So then you moved up to York.
Yeah.
And then you had another similar kind of episode where you lost more words.
Yeah. Yeah, it got a bit rough because I lost numbers. I couldn't do numbers, and of course I like doing Scrabble, and I was trying to play Scrabble with Elisa, and it was pretty hopeless because you've got to do letters and numbers to do Scrabble.
Right.
It wasn't working.
So then Elisa took you to the hospital to get you checked out. And how was that?
Well, I was a bit cross about it because it wasn't really... I didn't say I wanted to go to the hospital. I thought that I maybe needed to talk to a doctor.
Right.
But I didn't want to be suddenly dumped in a hospital. But that's what happened. And so I thought, well, okay, they're English, they're doing it their way, and I'll try and cooperate. But I didn't want to cooperate. I wanted to go home. And if a doctor thought that I needed attention, then I wanted the doctor to tell me. And the doctors didn't tell me. The doctors put me in a more closed down place where there were a lot of people who had no idea where or when they were. And it was very restrictive. And the food was horrible. I was very upset about that part of the experience because actually nobody talked to me. Like a doctor could have talked to me and said, well, we think that such and such has happened. But they didn't. Nobody said anything about anything. And all the other people there were very far gone with like stroke-like symptoms, not knowing where they were and behaving quite strangely.
So how did you find out that you had these brain tumors?
Well, I didn't find out for about 5 weeks. No, days, 6 days, something like that.
Yes, they were waiting on the MRI. You had to wait a very long time to get the MRI results.
But they didn't even tell me that. I didn't know what they were waiting for.
Right.
It just seemed as if more time kept going by and nobody was doing anything.
But then Joanna and I talked to you after the MRI results.
Yes. And then I understood.
And how did that make you feel once you knew you had this diagnosis of terminal brain cancer?
Well, I was not very surprised because my brain was definitely not working right. Really quite strange symptoms. Felt very weird. So then somebody told me. Was it you?
Yeah, it was us.
You told me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, oh, I see. It's not a stroke. It's what Chip had. So if you have a stroke, you can fight very, very hard to regain all your capacity, which is what I did. I worked so hard to play Scrabble and to go over my tables over and over so that I could make my mathematical part of my brain, if there ever was such a thing, to exercise and to try and be awfully sensible. But it wasn't very successful. I didn't seem to be able to make my mind cooperate properly. I did a bit. I really did get better quite a bit.
So how else did you feel when you found out it was the same thing Dad had?
Well, I wasn't very surprised because everybody had been very surprised that what I had was producing the symptoms that seemed to be showing up. Because the doctors really didn't think that I had cancer. So they weren't at all helpful. They weren't even nice.
Well, they were helpful once the MRI results happened.
Once the MRI results came, that was different. But then I didn't see those same doctors ever again.
Right.
So that was it for those doctors.
Okay.
And then I thought, well, all right, whatever they're going to have to do, they're going to have to do. So, it's the same path that Chip trod. And, I can do that. And, in fact, I have the same tools that he had. So, I prayed about it. I talked to God about it. And I thought, sure, I can die. People do all the time. And it's not so terrible. And I had a spell of a few weeks when I really felt extremely comforted because that's okay. I knew that was going to happen someday, and the day is sooner than I thought it might be, but that's what it is. And in fact, it's rather exciting. And I had a rather lovely spell where I was thinking of all the wonderful things that I would begin to find out about and know and do and live. And it just seemed very clear and obvious and not really a problem, except that it was taking time. And I didn't know when this might happen, and I didn't want it to be a big nuisance, which sounds a bit of a silly thing to say, but you know what I mean. I mean, when you don't know when something's going to happen, it's hard to prepare for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So how have you been spending your time or just feeling in the last couple weeks with Joe and me around?
Well, it's been amazing being cared for so. I didn't expect it. But it's really lovely being loved. Very sweet. And I haven't felt bad, I haven't been in a lot of pain. I've had some pain, but not a lot. More discomfort, really. I'm rather excited. Because there are a lot of very wonderful things that we experience now, but it's going to be beyond what we could think or imagine. Of course it is, because I can't think or imagine anything like that. I mean, I can't imagine not being dependent on a physical body. That's such a strange thought. And, you know, sort of celestial realities, things that we wonder about. You know, why am I here? What happens next? It's very interesting. Yes.
Is there anything else you want to tell people about what you're going through that people have asked?
Well, it's a little awkward because people aren't very good at talking about dying. And I really know so little about it. And, you know, I've been listening to a lot of wonderful books on tape. Some of them are ones about other religions, which is so interesting. You know, you think about Hinduism and all the wonderful realities that it talks about, and you think about, oh gosh, like Tutankhamun and the things that they thought about and so on. I mean, they hadn't a clue. And they invented all these possibilities, which is very creative and makes you feel very admiring of these people who lived with these terrifying thoughts about what comes next. I don't have to do that. I don't have to tie it down to particular terrifying thoughts. I can be quite sure that those particular terrifying thoughts are not what's going to happen, which is very good. It's going to be a surprise. Yes. I don't know if that makes any sense at all.
Okay.